right, so get this. We're going to take a deep dive into a case
Right.
that, kind of reads like a legal thriller.
Uh-oh.
Mathew Toro and his son Mason.
Right.
And our mission is to, untangle this web and figure out what happened and, shine a light on all these injustices.
And you know what I find really interesting is that, like, all these sources, they all show Mathew as this guy that's just trying to be a good dad,
Right.
but he keeps running into these roadblocks everywhere he turns.
It's heartbreaking. It really is. And it's kind of infuriating, too.
Yeah.
So let's, introduce everybody in this drama, right?
Yeah.
We've got Mathew, who's trying to do the right thing for his son. And then we've got Rihanna Schwegel, who's Mason's mom and her family.
Okay.
And get this, even Mathew's own mother, Madeline Meanier, is, part of this whole mess.
Whoa, hold on, wait a minute.
Talk about a plot twist, right?
Yeah, that's crazy. That's a wild family dynamic.
Oh, totally.
To really get this case, we got to go back to the beginning.
Okay.
All the way back to 2015,
All right.
when Mathew and Rihanna met at Rio Vista Village.
Hey.
What's really interesting is that, right from the start, you can see hints of this manipulation that keeps popping up throughout all these sources.
Yeah, there are those red flags right from the beginning.
Yeah.
Mathew was drawn to Rihanna because she seemed so vulnerable, and he just wanted to help her
Yeah.
and overcome, all of her struggles, and thought, maybe having a family would help her be more stable.
Right.
But it seems like Rihanna might have had a totally different plan.
You think so?
Yeah.
What makes you say that? Right.
Mathew's mother.
All right.
You called her the architect of deception. And the more we find out about her, the more that seems true.
Yeah, she's not just passively letting Rihanna do her thing.
Right.
She's actively working against her own son.
It's crazy, right?
It's like she's behind the scenes,
Yeah.
pulling strings and manipulating people to get what she wants.
Oh, totally.
I mean, and it looks like what she wants is to keep Mathew and Mason apart.
Yeah. And these sources say that Madeline has a history of doing stuff like this.
Really?
Yeah. They say that she lied about having a disability.
Wow.
And she exploited her autistic son, Andrew. And she even accused Mathew's dad of stalking her.
Wow. That's a lot.
Yeah. And it's like she has this playbook she follows,
Okay.
create chaos, play the victim, and then manipulate the legal system to get what she wants.
It's a scary thought.
Oh, it's terrifying.
To think that someone would go to these lengths to hurt their own family.
I know. And Madeline's actions had real consequences for Mathew.
Right.
It affected his ability to find a place to live and get a job.
Yeah, I bet.
Because people believed her accusation. And there was even a time when Mathew called the police for help, but the officer had already heard Madeline's side of the story and didn't believe him.
That's just wrong.
It really is.
It shows how much damage false accusations can do.
Totally. Even if they're proven false later,
Yeah.
it can still follow you around and hurt you.
And it shows how much power these people in authority have.
Right.
They can unknowingly make things worse based on lies.
Okay, so we've got Madeline in the background, pulling the strings.
Right.
But she's not the only one working against Mathew.
Oh, really? Who else?
Let's talk about the Schwegel family.
Okay.
A whole web of lies and obstruction.
That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, these sources describe them as a family where manipulation is like normal.
Wow.
Rihanna's sister, Nicole, was in on a lot of the schemes.
Gee.
And their mother, Mickey, basically enabled Rihanna's behavior, even though she knew that Rihanna lied a lot.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, and their motive seems pretty clear.
What's that?
They wanted to keep Mathew away from Mason.
Keep him away from his son.
Yeah, they kept denying him visits, made up reasons to get restraining orders against him,
Oh, wow.
and even tried to manipulate the people working on the case and influence the court.
So when you say restraining order, you mean a court order that stops him from doing something?
Yeah, an injunction.
Right. Okay, I get it.
So they were basically using the law as a weapon to keep Mathew away.
Jeez.
But here's where it gets even worse.
Okay.
The sources say that Mathew's own lawyer pressured him into giving up his parental rights.
No way.
That's a serious accusation.
It really is.
And it makes you question the lawyer's ethics.
Yeah.
If this is true, it means Mathew was in a really tough spot.
Yeah.
With pressure coming from all sides.
Oh, yeah.
And he might have been forced into making a decision that wasn't best for him or Mason.
It's like David versus Goliath.
Oh, totally. But in this story, David's got a bunch of Goliaths to fight.
And he still doesn't give up.
Nope. There's actually a time when he and Mason are reunited for 3 months.
Okay.
This little window of time, it shows what could have been.
Right.
You can see the strong bond between them.
It's such a contrast to everything else we've heard about Mathew.
Totally.
During that time, he becomes Mason's main caregiver.
Wow.
And Rihanna's still struggling.
Right.
The sources say that Mason was doing great when he was with Mathew.
Really?
Yeah, he was happier, more engaged, and developing well.
That's amazing.
It's so sad to think that it was all taken away.
It's like they showed him what a stable and loving environment could be like,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
just ripped it away.
Yeah, this sudden separation just adds another layer of injustice to this whole case.
It seems like the court made a really bad decision and put Mason's safety at risk.
Yeah, it makes you question if they really investigated this properly.
Yeah.
And did they even consider this when they were deciding who should have custody of Mason?
Right.
It seems like they didn't care about his safety at all.
And this wasn't just a one-time thing either.
Oh, really?
These sources, they show that Rihanna kept denying Mathew visitation,
Oh, no.
often for the flimsiest excuses.
Yeah, that's not right.
And there's this one instance that just breaks your heart.
Oh, gosh, what happened?
She wouldn't even let Mathew see Mason on Father's Day.
Oh, my gosh, that's awful.
Yeah, it's a classic example of parental alienation.
Yeah.
Basically, when one parent tries to ruin the relationship between the child and the other parent,
That's so messed up.
it's really damaging for both the child and the parent who's being pushed away.
Yeah, I bet.
It's like they're using Mason as a pawn in their game.
It's like emotional manipulation.
Totally. And what's even more messed up is that the courts didn't do anything to stop it.
Wow, they just let it happen.
Yeah, it's like they were blind to what was really going on.
It's not just Rihanna, though, right? The sources also point to some pretty disturbing behavior from Madeline as well.
Right.
Well, it shows that this pattern of lying and manipulation, it goes way beyond just this one case.
Right.
If she's willing to do this to her own family,
Yeah.
it makes her actions against Mathew seem even more believable.
Yeah, it's like you're connecting the dots and you start to see this bigger picture.
Exactly.
So speaking of Madeline's manipulations,
Right.
let's talk about how she twisted the truth about Mathew's father, Ivan Toro.
Oh, yeah. What did she do?
She made him out to be this absent father who didn't care about his kids.
Really?
But when Ivan tried to help his kids financially and emotionally, she wouldn't let him.
Wow. So she was keeping him away, too.
Yeah, it's like she was using parental alienation on the grandfather
That's messed up.
to isolate Mathew even more and control what everyone knew.
And she wasn't just manipulating her own family either, right?
Right.
What about that housing employee, Marin's?
Oh, right.
She helped Madeline try to frame Mathew's father for unpaid rent and damages.
Oh, yeah.
And she even helped forge documents.
Wow, so Madeline had a whole network of people who were helping her with her schemes.
That's pretty scary.
It really is, and it makes you wonder if there's corruption in these systems too.
Yeah, if the people in charge are helping her,
Right.
it's going to be even harder for Mathew to get justice.
All right, so we've seen how Madeline manipulated people in all these different ways.
Okay.
But how did this affect Mathew's life?
Well, the sources say that because of Madeline's false accusations, Mathew had a really hard time finding work and a place to live.
Yeah.
Landlords and employers probably saw those accusations
Right.
and didn't want to take a chance on him,
It's a perfect example of how damaging false accusations can be.
even if they're proven wrong later.
Right.
They can still hurt you.
Okay, but if all of this is true, why didn't anybody step in and do something about it?
Yeah, where were the people who are supposed to protect Mathew and Mason?
Right.
That's where the system failed them.
Okay. How?
There are a bunch of times where the courts and caseworkers just ignored evidence that contradicted what Rihanna and Madeline were saying.
You're talking about those reports of Rihanna's drug use and how she was putting Mason in danger.
Yeah, exactly.
And they just ignored those.
It's like they had already decided what they wanted to happen,
Right.
and they didn't care about any evidence that didn't fit their story.
Yeah, it's like they had this bias against Mathew from the beginning. It's like Mathew was set up to fail right from the start.
It seems like it.
Like everyone was against him, even though he was trying his best to be a good dad.
It's really sad.
All right, so we've seen how Rihanna and Madeline were working against Mathew
Yeah,
and how the system failed to protect him and Mason.
right.
But I'm still stuck on that 3-month reunion.
Yeah.
Well, according to these documents, her behavior actually got worse during the reunion.
Really?
Yeah, she was acting even more erratically and irresponsibly.
Oh, no.
There are even reports of her drinking in the car with Mason in the back seat.
What?
Yeah, it's really disturbing.
It shows where her priorities were.
Yeah, it seems like her own needs always came before Mason's safety and well-being.
It's really frustrating.
It is, and it happened while Mathew was providing a safe and loving environment for Mason.
Right.
It's like the courts were completely oblivious to what was really happening,
But remember, Rihanna admitted that Mathew was a good father.
right? In that letter from 2020.
Yeah, she said that he was a good dad and that he wasn't a threat to her or Mason.
Right, and she even got it notarized.
That completely contradicts everything she said before. It makes you think that maybe she made up the whole case against Mathew.
It's like a total 180.
Yeah.
It seems like the court didn't care about that letter at all,
It's like they couldn't admit they made a mistake.
even when they had proof right there in front of them.
So why do you think Rihanna ended the reunion?
Well, maybe she felt threatened by how well Mason was doing with Mathew.
Okay.
Like maybe she was afraid of losing control,
Okay.
or maybe she just couldn't handle being a mom while she was struggling with her own issues.
Yeah, addiction can really cloud your judgment.
Right.
It can make you do things without thinking.
So you're saying that her addiction might have played a part in her decision to send Mason away?
It's definitely possible.
Okay.
Maybe she felt overwhelmed by taking care of Mason
Yeah.
while also trying to deal with her addiction.
Right.
Or maybe she was worried about losing the help she was getting.
Yeah, it's really sad for Mathew and Mason.
It is.
So we talked about how the legal system and child welfare services failed to protect Mason
Right.
and how they didn't protect Mathew's rights as a father.
But what about Mason?
Yeah.
What about the long-term impact this is going to have on him?
He's the real victim in all of this.
He's been through so much.
Yeah, conflict, manipulation, maybe even neglect.
Remember that time when Rihanna passed out in front of him?
Oh, yeah. Allegedly from drinking too much.
It must have been terrifying for him.
Yeah, a young child seeing that.
That kind of experience can leave scars.
It can really mess with a child's sense of security.
Yeah, their ability to trust people.
Yeah, and their emotional well-being.
It makes you worry about the challenges Mason might face as he grows up.
Yeah, are there resources to help kids who have been through stuff like this?
There are therapists and organizations that specialize in helping kids who have experienced parental alienation and trauma.
That's good to hear.
Hopefully Mason will get the support he needs
Yeah, so he can deal with everything that's happened.
and build a healthy and happy life.
Yeah, and maybe one day he'll be able to reconnect with his father
That would be great.
and build a real relationship based on honesty and understanding.
This whole case has been really heavy.
It has.
I'm angry about how unfair it's been,
Yeah,
but I still have hope that the truth will come out.
me too.
It reminds us that we can't just believe everything we hear.
Right.
We have to think critically, question things, and get different perspectives,
And we have to hold people in power accountable.
especially when their actions hurt children.
Right, exactly. And to our listener who told us about this case,
Yeah.
thank you for sharing these sources with us.
We hope that this deep dive has helped you understand this complicated situation a little better.
Yeah, and maybe it's inspired you to keep learning about this case and find out more information.
Remember, knowledge is power.
Right, but it's only powerful if you understand it and use it.
We want you to use what you've learned to fight for change, to support people who are fighting for justice, and to speak up for those who can't speak for themselves.
That's a great way to end this.